Greetings and welcome to our second Roadmap Roundtable event, specifically for our Moralis Money Pro community. I'm Phil, head of research at Moralis, and I'm super excited to kick this one off with you guys. We're going to have some great questions just from our Moralis Money Pro community, and so that should be a hint to you. If you're watching this on YouTube later on, you're seeing it a bit later, but stick with us because you're still going to find some solid content and a great overview of the roadmap for our partner, Axelar, that's joining us today. Now, before we get into that, I want you guys to welcome my co-host and partner in crypto, Coke, to the stage. How you doing today, Coke?
Hey, good. Excited to see what Axelar will bring on the table. 2023, Axelar has been laying all kinds of bricks for the future to build on. So, Axelar virtual machine, gas burning mechanism. Let's see what they will bring on the table.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to talk about all that stuff with you guys too. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention before we get going is I first found Axelar years ago when I was checking out Cosmos ecosystem for the first time. And it was really exciting to see this multi-chain, cross-chain capable ecosystem where you could move tokens between different chains. And then to see that one of those chains, which at the time hadn't launched yet, promised to bring that same level of seamless interoperability to all the different chains that are out there. And if you got a chance to see our interchain token service demo over on the Moralis channel, and we'll make sure to link that below for you guys, then you saw a lot of this taking place in real time in action, tokens moving from one chain to another while maintaining the same token supply overall and in a very seamless way. Now, that said, I want to welcome today to the stage Galen, Global Comms Lead for Axelar. Welcome, Galen. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Phil. Thanks for having me. This is
Well,
gonna be
it's a
fun.
pleasure to have you, and I'm excited to talk with you about the Axelar roadmap. In fact, before we do anything else, let's go ahead and share that roadmap on the screen here so that everybody can take a look along with us. All right, here we are. Perfect. So, now, this is the most recent roadmap that we were able to find when doing a little research on our own. Now, of course, Moralis and Axelar working closely together to bring you guys some of the newest advancements in blockchain tech this year. And we're constantly working independently and together to bring all that to fruition. But I specifically wanted to go through this breakdown with you today, Galen, and get some info from you on some of the things that we can expect. Now, of course, we'll be taking questions from the audience as we go. So I'm going to try to keep an eye on that at the same time. But let me hand it over to you for just a second here. I know we've seen the launch of the Interchain token service. Is there anything we've seen already launched this year or anything that we're expecting to come very soon? Well, let us know what's hottest on the radar here right now.
Absolutely. So first of all, let me just say, roadmap sometimes implies that there's, a sort of like a team that's planning and looking ahead. Everything that happens at Axelar is subject to a vote on chain. So I want to make sure people don't get the wrong impression that like we're sort of planning and delivering. Everything we've done so far that's updated mainnet has been subject to on-chain vote, and everything in the future will be as well. There are a couple things on the roadmap that have shipped already. Phil, you mentioned Interchain token service, which, as you described, enables someone to take a token and have it basically have native properties on multiple chains. It's like a native token on multiple chains, but the supply is managed and the features and functionality of the token are managed so that they're translated between chains. So it's like, forget bridges, forget a wrapped version of a token on another chain. You've got a native version of that token on another chain. And what we're doing with the service, the Interchain token service, is enabling that to be basically almost a no code proposition potentially. If it's custom features, there's some coding involved, but we've automated a lot of the overhead, a lot of the repetitive tasks of programming and translating a token from multiple chains in that way. So you're on multi chains, you've got a token that acts like native, and you are able to then scale in that way, reach users on multiple chains. We did some math on this recently. If you just build and reach users on Ethereum alone versus if you reach all of the top 10 smart contract platforms, it's a 10x difference in active users. So if you can build something multi-chain, you have a 10x greater TAM for the application or product that you're building. And that's the kind of developer that we're trying to reach with this product. So that shipped in January. People are using it. We've got a number of multi-chain tokens issued on the Interchain token service, and it's going really well. I think it's been a really awesome product. People have responded really positively. And then, okay, so what else coming up? We just tweeted today actually about some new docs for the Interchain Amplifier, which is a product that enables you to connect a new chain permissionlessly. So right now you want to connect a new chain, and it usually involves working with some experienced developers who know a thing or two about Axelar network. Now Interchain Amplifier, the ability to do that becomes subject really only to a vote by the validators. Is this a chain that we can connect? Yes. Okay. Steps to go through. It's connected. Boom. So I think there's a lot of projects that are really excited about that. We're starting to put together some documentation and see that out in the wild. And just tweeted about that today, actually, from the Axelar intern account, which is definitely one that you should follow if you don't already.
Very cool. Now, when you're talking about the community, I assume, and I'm pretty sure I'm correct here, you're talking about the Axel holders, the AXL holders who are able to then vote on these different proposals.
Yeah.
There's a lot of us in the Moralis Money Pro community that are Axelar holders. So we're excited to hear that these actions are actually taking place on the basis of votes from the community. Now, one question I think a lot of the people in our Moralis Money Pro community have is, are we maximizing our utility for our Axel assets through staking them natively for security for the chain? Or is there anything else, like maybe a specific advice to do with governance that you might give to those people? Anything you want to say to that effect?
Sure.
We're always looking for additional utility.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. I think, first of all, staking AXL is how you contribute to security on the network. That's the most important thing. Diversity of the stake. This is something that if you look at some of the other comparable cross-chain networks, we are the only one that operates a proof of stake blockchain. That has a number of advantages. It means we can run smart contracts at the multi-chain layer. Nobody else can do that. So the services that I was just talking about, Interchain Token Service, Interchain Amplifier, those run on smart contracts on a blockchain. You can see them. Right. They're verifiable. Don't trust, verify, right? Anybody else wants to do something similar, they've got to run it off chain. We're running it on chain with smart contract logic. So, as a AXL token holder or as a participant in a network that's running value across Axelar, you're able to see that end to end. You're able to understand, how your AXL is securing that transaction and what the different steps are, even in a very complex transaction involved in, say, for example, moving around supply of interchain tokens between chains. So the main important thing you can do as an AXL holder is to stake it. And if you're not sure how to stake your AXL, just Google how to stake AXL. First result's going to be a tutorial that we published that shows you very easily how to do that. You can go to squidrouter.com, make sure that you are holding, first of all, the native version of AXL, not the wrapped version that is issued by some centralized exchanges, right? Some centralized exchanges only handle ERC20s. Axelar, as you described earlier, Phil, is a Cosmos built bit of infrastructure. We built it with Cosmos SDK, basically because it works really well, and also because we share the vision of IBC, which is basically the idea that you should be able to connect any number of blockchains and have them interoperate seamlessly.
Absolutely. And, I'm not going to go into deeply here today all of the advantages of IBC, because that's something that we go over extensively in our Moralis Money Pro.
We could talk Cosmos all day, but
I think,
look, I mean, other than staking AXL, community.axelar.network is where our forum is. That's a great place to go to learn about what proposals are coming up, what people are proposing, both like on the community side, like what can we do to educate people better about Axelar, and also on the mainnet side, like what developments are being proposed to upgrade and improve and add functionality to the network.
Somebody's asking in the chat here, what is now they said IDC. I think they mean IBC. IBC. Yes, that's inter-blockchain communication. And so we'll just break that down really quick here for you guys. So when we're talking about blockchains, we're talking about consensus mechanisms where we all participate in verifying the data that's published to them. And one of the things you can publish to them, in addition to transaction requests and things like that, is messages. And those messages can contain code. Now, when you're publishing a message that contains code, you could potentially send that message to another network. And if that network supports the same utilities that yours does, you may even be able to send tokens between them. And that's exactly what Cosmos capable networks are able to do. Now, what's so exciting about Axelar, like we were saying earlier, is that this is expanded then to non-Cosmos chains, EVM chains, things like Ethereum, Optimism, Arbitrum, and maybe Galen wants to mention a few others here are included.
I do actually. I want to mention
Go ahead.
non-EVM chains because that's, I think, something that's definitely in view for the network, right? And we talked about interchain amplifier. Interchain, right now it's like to connect a new form of consensus, difficult, right? EVM, once you kind of gotten one, okay, right? That's the promise of EVM. It's like a standard. You can, if it's EVM compatible, it sort of operates in a very similar way across the board. But you have a lot of very exciting things happening in places that have nothing to do with EVM. Oh, Solana, Sui, right? The move-based chain, Sui and Aptos, Stellar. Those are all chains that have been discussed for new connections. And I think if you're following Axelar Network on Twitter, just today we saw a tweet from Sui Network about something very exciting that involves both Axelar and Sui. So I would definitely check that out if I were you. A new project that's just in the early stages, and I think is going to turn out to be really exciting.
Now, we got a bit of an off the wall question here, but I'm going to go ahead and put it up on screen anyway, because I know that Eigenlayer just launched yesterday. It's something we've been buzzing about a little bit. Now, guys, if you're really interested in Eigenlayer, we'll go into it in the Moralis Money Pro community and in the Bull Run course over there. So definitely join us and check it out over there. But just generally speaking, we're not exactly comparing apples to apples when we start to talk about these two different things, because with Axelar, we have a consensus layer and a full blockchain that maintains its own security completely independently. In a lot of ways, that's a security add. When you move something into Axelar, when you're using it for cross-chain services, you're benefiting from the security that provides. Now, Eigenlayer, on the other hand, is leveraging the security of other networks in order to produce additional yield. So rather than you could say simplifying risk and making it more secure, they're actually adding risk for the purpose of additional yield. I don't want to talk too much more on that, but is that consistent with your understanding, Galen, or maybe you wanted to add a little bit more there?
No, look, I think there's there's definitely a path that could be interesting with Eigenlayer. I mean, you could envision something where, look, I think just looking at the question here, why not use Eigenlayer to secure Axelar instead of AXL? I think for a network like Axelar, if you're going to be a blockchain that connects blockchains, there does need to be a native token providing security, a native proof of stakes token. But that doesn't mean that there can't be also shared security as well, right? I think, in Axelar's case, the need for AXL seems fairly self-evident to me, right? The validators have to be incentivized in a way that, like, they see the long-term value of the network, and they're incentivized to protect it. That said, there are all kinds of ways to sort of share security, and certainly that's something that's been long discussed in Cosmos, which I view as sort of like almost like a lab for what's interesting and exciting in proof of stake. And Eigenlayer, I think, is a great example of how that can be done. So, for example, you could envision a future where, Eigenlayer brings in an additional asset, say ETH, a blue chip asset of some kind, to sort of add security, right? Add bond, to you say, well, if we're going to transact in this way, if we're going to transact in these volumes, if this entity is going to participate and transact cross-chain with Axelar, an additional bond is required in another token besides AXL, right? And so this could be the path, for example, to Axelar securing far more value than it currently does. And I think, right now, I think at this point, it's over 8 billion has been transferred on Axelar. That, to some people, to me, maybe seems like a large amount, but to other people, it's a very small amount. And I think when we look at, is Web3 DeFi going to be able to operate on that scale, there's going to be a lot of Eigenlayer type solutions that are going to be required in order to give those kind of actors comfort.
So I think we got a great follow-up question here, Galen, on this, and Coke, feel free to jump in here if you've got anything to add. I know we've been kind of dominating the conversation here, but did you have anything?
When it comes to shared security, consumer chain on Cosmos, have you any like ideas maybe becoming uh, secured by Cosmos or Atom itself. Is popular being a consumer chain there as well.
I think it's you know, Coke, it's relevant to like to what the user demands, right? The user, I think if you're thinking about a user who has a great deal of value to secure or has, you know, very stringent security requirements, and you know, this is not far-fetched, by the way, right? We see BlackRock entering the space. Certainly, you know, I don't know that we see like BlackRock, you know, just wading up to the hips in DeFi or anything, but you know, this is sort of, you know, we have players now closer and closer who are, you know, certainly handling value in the trillions. And so when you think about what would a player like that demand, you know, is it going to be Atom? Is it going to be ETH? Is it going to be Bitcoin? You know, I think those are the kind of questions that are up to those participants. And you know, a path like Eigenlayer is truly exciting, opens up a road for you know, for those kind of needs to be met. Yeah. By the way, Sergey, co-founder of Axelar Protocol and CEO of Interop Labs, which is the initial developer of Axelar, had a great podcast episode on The Block in December with Sriram from Eigenlayer, and maybe I'll try to dig it up and drop a note in the comments with a link. But if you just Google it, I'm sure you find it. It was on the Block podcast, The Scoop, with Frank Chaparro. I thought it was a great conversation. And also like one, you know, because it's, you know, Frank's in the room, so he keeps it like on the, he keeps it real for the traders, you know, and meanwhile, you know, Sriram and Sergey were able to kind of geek out a little bit on sort of the, you know, the technical implications of, you know, how do you sort of scale you know, to you know, multiple layer twos in Ethereum and still preserve the security of Ethereum, right?
Absolutely. Now I got a question in the chat here, and I think what they're asking is bridge utility, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper on their question too. So I mean, the simple answer is you want to move tokens from Phantom to Optimism. I believe Squid Router is capable of that.
Do it. Yeah. Go to squidrouter.com, app.squidrouter.com. Easy. So easy. In fact, if you turn on the boost feature, and you know, from Phantom to Optimism, this shouldn't cost you much, I don't think. It does cost a little more, but basically that does a kind of an off-chain action, right? Like you've heard people talk about intents and cross-chain intents. You know, normally you have to wait for finality on both sides. I'm going off on a tangent here, but normally you have to wait.
No, please continue. This is very interesting.
I think this is one of my favorite things. Because normally you do a cross-chain transaction like a bridge, say going from Phantom to Optimism. You have to wait for finality on Phantom, and then you have to, you know, wait for finality on Optimism, right? Because you can't issue the wrapped tokens or whatever you're doing. You can't sort of make the swap if you're doing that. If you're swapping into another
token, you can't guarantee that the minting is pure if you haven't finalized the lock. I've got
to finalize the deposit on the source chain. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's got to be locked there, and the system has got to know that it's there before it can then, you know, basically issue a loan. That's a bridge, right? Or execute a swap with a wrapped token, right, on the other side. So you know, you might go from USDC to USDC on, you know, native USDC on two chains, right? But in any event, you need to know that you actually deposited some USDC on chain A before you can do something on chain B. Point I'm getting to is Squid Boost uses a feature that is built into Axelar that you know, is available for teams to build with, called GMP Express, which enables basically the entity, in this case Squid, to sort of, you know, probabilistically say, you know what, these tokens look pretty good, right? Say, you know, 1-2 blocks, we're good. Go ahead and issue them on the other side. And it's like issuing a very fast bridge loan in a way, something like that. And so that enables you to get like in under 20 seconds, go to Optimism in under 20 seconds. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. So in less time than it took me to talk about it, you're going to be on Optimism with whatever token you were in the mood to have. But I think, you know, when it comes to connecting Phantom and Optimism or any two chains, what actually gets pretty interesting is when you don't necessarily move the tokens and you actually just leave them locked where they are and then issue an instruction to do something else on the other chain. So this might be, for example, issuing a loan on the connected chain. There's a ecosystem application called Prime Protocol that does that. You know, it might be something in a game. It might say, oh yes, you have this much of this currency on this chain, and therefore we're going to allow you to do this or that in the game on this other chain. Or yes, you've proven you have this NFT, and therefore we're going to unlock this experience or these other attributes in this game. That could be something that happens on another blockchain. It could be something that happens off chain. But the point is the assets don't need to move. I'm not sort of creating a wrapped representation of them or even sort of, minting a native version of them on another chain. I'm just keeping them where they are, and I'm sending messages back and forth. And that's the power of general message passing. And look, like we view a future, everybody in the Axelar community is looking toward a future when 1 in 4 transactions will be cross-chain. Right, you're looking at a scenario like that. You've just bought an NFT. You want to use it as collateral to do something else, or as a kind of a identity token to get access into something else, an access token. Those transactions are not going to be all happening in one place. Some of the things you want to do are going to be on Optimism. Some of the things you want to do are going to be on Phantom. Some of them are going to be on a completely different ecosystem. Right, somewhere in Cosmos, somewhere on Solana, somewhere on Sui. All of these places, exciting things are happening, right? Monad has really caught fire. You just don't know where the next application is going to pop up that you're really excited to get into for whatever reason. And honestly, 1 in 4 transactions being cross-chain, that is not like a bold prediction. It's something we believe. And I think, if that's the case, I don't think you can imagine like going to a bridge every 1 in 4 transactions, like, oh, I'm going to go off to this other thing. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take my wallet back and go log in and do this over here. Those experiences are going to be seamless. And in order for them to be seamless, you need to have that programmability that moves cross-chain. You need to have the smart contract logic of a blockchain in between chains that's able to handle the kind of complexity that's involved when you have, that level of transactions flowing back and forth between 2 different blockchains.
So I think we already addressed this, but somebody's asking, can you explain GMP on Axelar? We were talking about that a little bit, about how
GMP, it stands for Good Morning Posse. No, I'm kidding. It stands for General Message Passing.
General Message Passing. Amazing. And yeah, guys, just remember, when you hear GMP, what is it? It's quicker access to your funds on a different chain through essentially an interchain loan that takes place based on a smaller number of confirmations in order to make that possible.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and look, it's that question of, are you just doing bridging, or are you able to pass arbitrary messages, meaning, data, function calls, anything that a computer can do, right? You probably heard the phrase Turing complete, right? Ethereum is Turing complete. So is Axelar. It is a proof of stake blockchain. It can pass any logic, any instruction, anything a computer can do, Axelar can do. So that, that enables you to do things like, build your sort of like, for example, think about a transportation hub, right? Think about Axelar as a transportation hub. Companies, right, build their facilities near transportation hubs, right? They build a warehouse. They build part of their global logistics system right next to the, the freight terminal, right next to the airport.
Well, and if we go back even further, civilizations centered around where there was water, because you'd move stuff through the water.
You could get on a boat, right? So you build your blacksmith's forge next to the river, so that you can put your stuff on a boat and ship it to the next town. And the same thing is true. I think we'll start to see the same thing being true. Like right now, everybody thinks of cross-chain as bridging, and that's fine. But in the future, I think people are going to realize that Axelar is not a bridge. Axelar is a global transport hub, and that's going to create opportunities for people not only to build on the chain that they desire, where they'll be closest to their users, but also to build part of the logic of their application in the cross-chain environment, right? In the interchain environment, building there to be closest to a multiplicity of chains, right? So that you can that allows boom, 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 all the chains where you need to reach your users with whatever you're providing as fast as possible.
And of course, that allows the interoperability solutions themselves to be improvable over time in a transparent way. So it's not somebody in a black box that you can't see changing the way that this bridge works. No, you're seeing the smart contract get published to the chain, and you're seeing that logic get pushed there. Now,
otherwise, like, what are we doing here, right? Yeah.
Okay, I see one question here I want to make sure we grab, and then I've got a couple of questions of my own before we wrap it up here. We're only got about 5 minutes left to go, guys. But the question here is Squid and Interswap. I don't know if I've used Interswap. Are you
Yeah,
familiar with that one?
definitely. Interswap is one of the newer, cross-chain liquidity routers. I don't want to, step out here, but I think, they certainly haven't been around as long as Squid. And I think the difference between the two is there's a unified liquidity pool in Interswap. Now, I'm gonna get out of my depth like this fast here. My depth on this is about an inch, or 1.5 centimeters. But I think the difference is Squid is pulling. Here's how Squid works. Squid pulls liquidity from dexes on different chains. If there's a liquid, if you want to go from let's say you want to go from AVAX to you want to go from AVAX to ARB, right? You want to go between Avalanche to Arbitrum, and you just want to swap. You want to swap AVAX to Arbitrum. It's going to swap your AVAX into USDC, bridge the USDC cross chain, right? It's going to find a liquid market on Avalanche for USDC to AVAX, swap into USDC, bridge the USDC over, swap the USDC on a liquid. It's going to find a DEX that has a liquid market on Arbitrum, where it can swap the USDC into ARB, right? So that's your sort of path there for Squid. It's finding liquidity pools in various connected dexes on various chains. I think Interswap works a little bit differently, where it's actually pooling the liquidity to make those swaps possible on its own. But I certainly encourage people to check them out. Interswap.io is their URL, and learn more about what they're building there. Because I think this whole world of cross-chain swaps is really just at the beginning. And that's even just like the simplest use case that we can talk about.
So I want to squeeze in here one question for myself. I'm curious about the gas burn mechanism because, of course, as blockchain and DeFi, can we call us nerds over here in Moralis Money Pro world?
Yeah,
we're excited about stuff like ultrasound money, where we see this gradually deflationary token in Ethereum. Is this something similar that you have planned for Axelar, or that the community has planned, or can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not dissimilar to what you've seen happen with Ethereum. If I'm not mistaken, was the London upgrade, right? Where you had to sort of introduce the gas burning mechanism.
Yeah, it's post EIP 1559, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, you're the man. It's not dissimilar there, and I think it really comes down to like, how do you secure the network? And make sure that you're contributing to its security over time, so that it can scale without basically, in a sort of an inflationary network where rewards increase to stakers and validators, right? Then you have a situation potentially where you get to a point where the inflation is too great and it reduces the security of the network. Right. So those things have to be held into balance. In Axelar's case, we think about it in terms of, Ethereum has its own sort of, the Ethereum community has its own thinking about, what that balance is and how it should be. On Axelar's side, it really has a lot to do with connecting new blockchains. So if you think about a world of hundreds of layer 2 blockchains, for example, on Ethereum, those are not, unlike the chains in Cosmos, right? Those require external verification. If you want to verify an event on an EVM chain, you must operate a node on that chain. Operating a node is expensive. And so, those, validators need to be compensated for the additional nodes that they have to operate in order to keep them incentivized to validate and connect new chains, right? And verify events on new connected chains. So you could quickly see a situation with hundreds of blockchains, thousands of blockchains. It's not outside the realm, right? If you think about it that way, where, that inflation, those rewards would get out of control. So things like this gas burning mechanism in the past, currently, fees on Axelar go to the token holders, like go to the validators. That's part of the compensation. The gas burning mechanism that's been proposed would change that so that fees for transactions are burned. And that is just, kind of one of several mechanisms that have been proposed to keep inflation and reward and incentives for validators in balance on the network, and continue to sort of allow it to scale as it secures more and more chains. I think now we're at 64 blockchains connected. And that's if I'm not mistaken, that's more than any other network. And we are, with this very much with the interchain amplifier launch, looking toward a world where that number will move in an exponential way.
Now we're getting low on time here. I see there's 3 pretty good questions here in the chat. I wish we had time for all 3. Galen, are you able to see these
Solana interoperability is in the pipeline.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. We'll take that one. Solana
Chainlink
interoperability.
CCIP is a closed source multi-sig.
Oh, okay, yeah. So guys, closed source multi-sig is not a open consensus layer that you can participate in. So that would be the key difference there. Good. Maybe we get through all of them.
My life is over. I'm going to be responding to messages on Twitter for the rest of the next 24/7.
It's no problem. We don't, as much as we would love to have Chainlink in the same stage that you're on right now, we haven't been talking to them about it. So this is specifically permissionless blockchain talk right now that we focus on most primarily. So this definitely fits
we
that
like to keep
bill.
it that way. We do like to keep it that way.
Absolutely. Now, that said, Coke, I wanted to hand it over to you if you had any final statements for our viewers here before we wrap it up today. And I apologize to anybody if you had a question in the chat that we didn't get to. We can definitely continue this discussion in the exclusive Moralis Money Pro Discord. I'm there every single day, as is Coke, and we love to talk about this stuff. There's no end to the amount of things we can discuss when it comes to beautiful permissionless tech, just like Axelar. And so definitely want to have those discussions there. Coke, over to you for any final statements.
Oh, yeah. So I actually have a question that will have a fast answer, I guess. So going back to Woody's question, like getting tokens from Phantom to Optimism. I mean, everybody, a lot of people view Axelar just as a bridge. But do you have a elevator pitch why it's way more than just the bridge?
Yeah, I mean, I think the elevator pitch is very simple. 1 in 4 transactions will be cross-chain. So if you think about what that means that we can't be sending people to bridges. You can't send somebody to a bridge and then have them ask them to come back to your app. It needs to be seamless. Axelar enables that kind of seamlessness, right? Because we have general message passing, because we have the Axelar virtual machine, which, by the way, was another item that was on that roadmap post that is now live and enabled on mainnet. Because we have these things, what would otherwise be prohibitive overhead for even the largest teams to build becomes automated. We have what you might say is true chain abstraction, certainly at the user level. And even in some ways, if this makes sense to say, you have a level of chain abstraction at the developer level, meaning that the developer doesn't need to consider, what are the costs of building on this chain or that chain? The developer just needs to consider, where does my token, where does my application need to be in order to reach my users? And honestly, with, in some cases, the push of a button, but in other cases, a few lines of simple code, you can be reaching that. So that's why we start to talk about Axelar as the shortest path to scale. You're going to be close to your users. You're going to be able to deliver what matters to them in the easiest way possible.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to hear more about that, check out that video over on the Moralis channel where we go over the interchain token service. Now, in addition to that, we've got another video coming out on that channel tomorrow with Axelar, where we're going to be looking at cross-chain liquidity. It's going to be a lot of fun and real exciting. So check that out as well. Galen, thank you for joining us today. It was awesome having you here, and we'll look forward to having you back for another call here in the future as well.
Anytime. Great to be here with you guys. Phil, Coke, it's a real pleasure. Yeah, thanks so much. And
coming.
Thanks to everybody for the great questions, by the way. These are honestly, Moralis community, these are the best questions that anyone has ever been asked in Web3. I'm not joking.
They know what they want.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you want to be a part of what we're learning about and what we're doing in DeFi every single day, click the link below, join the Moralis Money Pro community, and don't waste any time because we're already learning more every single day. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see everybody in the next video.